Hello and welcome to the Morning After Show. My name is Joshua Reimer. I am joined by none other than Jared Block, who is on my right. Jared, how are we doing this fine Wednesday morning?
We are both tired. But
Yeah,
my
man.
mic works, so I'm here.
Oh,
We're
yeah,
good
your
now.
mic does work. Good, I'm glad. I forgot about this whole debacle yesterday with the mic not working, so I'm glad Keith didn't chew those wires too hard.
Nope, we're all good here. It's freezing cold today, dude. It's cold.
Mm,
It's like
nice.
-5 today. High of like 8. So
That's awful. What is
we're
that?
killing it over here.
Yeah, let's see. It's 26 degrees right now for me, so definitely cold in my aspect, but not as cold as that. I'll make that clear. It's definitely not as cold as that. You know what? Thank goodness we're not playing playoff football in Lambeau. No one wants that. No one wants to play football in that weather. What are we talking about here?
Bacon says it's -23 when I went to the gym this morning. Yeah, dude.
Oh, what? How do you
But
even go out of your car?
well, you have about right. Let you forget for us yesterday. The wind chill. They have this thing associated with the wind chill when the guy says this is X amount of time with which you can be outside without getting exposure to frostbite. And that number yesterday was like 32 minutes. So,
That's
uh,
insane. You guys basically live in
23.
Antarctica, essentially. Like that's what I'm hearing right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. I mean, -23 is probably like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and without getting frostbite. So,
Insane. By the way, what's going on, JTK? Glad to have you here. Glad to have you here as well, Bacon23 and XY Games. Thanks for hanging out with us on the stream this morning. Sorry we're running late. Like Jared said, both him and I are tired. Separate things. I know he had to deal with a scary situation last night. I had to deal with work stuff. So we neither one of us went to bed at the time we should have. But we're here and we're ready to talk about some sports because lots of things went on yesterday, including Sean Payton leaving the Saints with a bag in their hands and also a crazy NBA day as well. So we can keep talking back and forth about whatever you want, but if you are ready, we should start breaking down everything that happened in the sports world yesterday.
lots of stuff from the NFL coaching department. So, yeah, that is the Sean Payton one probably takes the cake. Although there are several other huge things to talk about as well. I don't know, man. Like the Sean Payton stuff happened like pretty much directly after we got off yesterday. So we haven't had much time to talk about it, and it was never really on the radar in the first place. But apparently, it's been something that he's thought about for quite some time. Head coach for 16 seasons, obviously most of that with Drew Brees. And you saw what happened to a Saints team without him last year. The still defense still very, very good. I mean, the team itself was still fairly good despite all the pieces they missed. I mean, Michael Thomas just refused to play at all. We'll see what happens with that situation. And they lost. And they had to start 4 quarterbacks, and none of them were typically that great. So, I mean, he's definitely leaving, I would say, an above average situation for a new coach. What do you feel about that take?
Yeah, I mean, we got to remember that this is a team that almost ended up making the playoffs, except for the Niners' amazing win against the Rams in Week 18. So it's not like this team had a bad year. I just feel like when you look at the contract situation that he left this team, it's kind of abysmal. Like, I don't think anyone else thinks that Taysom Hill is going to be a starting quarterback at any point. Like no other. The reason that Taysom Hill is a starting quarterback is because Sean Payton loves him for some reason, just absolutely adores him. And I don't think any other coach comes into this situation and wants to use Taysom Hill in that same regard. But you got to remember, this Taysom Hill contract is effing huge. Like when
That
you
is.
consider it all said and done, he carries $21 million in guarantees. And if he does do well, it's up to worth to it could be worth up to 94 million. Like this deal could potentially screw the cap situation, not for this year, not for next year, but the next 3 years.
Right. And I think that Michael Thomas is in flux right now. I also think that Jameis Winston moves on to somebody else as well. And when I say that I think you thought about it for a long time, I meant like the last 6 months of the calendar year, right? Like you knew what you were getting yourself into. You didn't know what was going to happen. You didn't decide on a quarterback until the late last weekend of August. And so with all of that, and then the Michael Thomas thing, I'm sure, which was super dramatic behind closed doors. You had all of that together, and you still managed to almost be a playoff team. Like he said in his press conference, he just looked he looked mentally and physically, like just emotionally exhausted, and I think that's the main reason behind all of it. And I would say, even with Drew having less than stellar last couple seasons, I mean, the writing I feel like has been on the wall a little bit. That I just thought that maybe that Drew and Sean would retire at the same time. That's kind of what I thought would happen at one point. So we'll see what happens. There's a lot of links to him going to the Cowboys, and Jerry Jones has mentioned that that he and Sean Payton have a very good relationship. Right now, Mike McCarthy's not really in a spot where he should be fired, in my opinion. Maybe that happens in a couple seasons, but I don't think that Sean Payton's done in the NFL. We just won't see him be a head coach at least next year.
Yes, I would agree. Man, it's going to be interesting to see what he does. I mean, I know people are saying that he could go to television as well, be an announcer. He said in the press conference yesterday, like he sees himself involved in football still in some regard, just doesn't see him involved in coaching, at least for the next few years. Um, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I feel really bad for the Saints, though. I feel bad that you kind of signed Taysom Hill to be Sean Payton's new guy, and now you're kind of left with holding the bag, and you're left in a really bad spot as the Saints. Like you're going to be in cap hell for the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, I keep going to the back to the Michael Thomas thing, but we're we haven't heard a single thing about that in quite a long time. So you do have some promising pieces on defense, but Cam Jordan's only getting a little bit older. The prime time of Alvin Kamara is only getting 1 year longer, and they don't have any. They don't have a receiving group. They just don't. And
Mhm.
so if Michael Thomas, I guess the goal here would be to find trade assets for him, and some people will take him. It's just, is he healthy right now?
Yeah, that is the big question. So the whole Saints debacle is going to be something that we're going to have to watch out for basically the whole entire season. Let's talk about some of the other stuff that we got news on yesterday, including the Vikings hiring Browns VP of Football Ops Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. They also hired someone else as their GM, right? Ryan. It's not Ryan Pace. That's not the right name. I thought they hired someone else too, though.
Well,
Maybe I'm
this
wrong.
this news just came directly this morning.
Oh, okay.
So
They hired someone
yeah,
yesterday. Bacon could probably help us out here. It's the guy that's friends with Flores, Vikings GM. Uh, oh, maybe it was Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah that got hired as the GM. Man, who am I thinking of? I have no
I
clue.
mean,
Anyway,
we have like eight stories
yeah,
regarding a lot
everything's
of these
getting
things. So
jumbled up in NFL right now. But yeah, okay. Vikings hire Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. Um, this is I really don't know what this signing is. I haven't heard a lot of Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. I see here that you said he was the Niners director of football research as well, so he's got to
he
be at
was.
least pretty good at his job.
Well,
What?
yeah, he was there from 2013-ish to 2020, and he only had 1 year with the Browns. So
Okay,
I mean, I think it's pretty solid. You're involved in two playoff organizations in your times there. Obviously,
yeah,
the Browns thing didn't work out this year, but he was in all of that build-up stuff for the Niners.
yeah. So this should be a good hiring for the Vikings, and it'll be interesting to see how this influences the head coaching job too. Right?
It absolutely will.
You know,
I think that you see. I mean, we'll talk about it, but the coaching availability, or at least the credible coaches, are thinning rapidly here.
I heard someone, and I think it was Bacon in the chat says they steal the San Francisco 49ers DC. Dude, stop stealing our DCs, y'all. You need to cut it out. First Robert Sala, now the guy that we have now, who's absolutely phenomenal. I'm going to be very disappointed if there's another 49ers hire that goes away from the team. Regardless, let's talk about Antonio Brown because lots is coming out about him. He's saying that he's going to pursue legal action against the Bucks after the whole injury debacle, and we know yesterday that he posted a picture on Twitter of him in a Ravens uniform. So I don't know what that means necessarily, but something's cooking here.
Drama. That's what that means to me.
Yeah.
You see how many podcasts and shows and stuff that he's been on in the last 2 weeks?
It's insane. The last like 2 weeks, like he was like the last 2 weeks have been a movie, and he posted a video of it. He's meeting like Kanye West, he's meeting Drake, he's meeting like anyone who's anybody you can think of are
Yep.
people that he's hanging out with.
Yep. And that's he's just spreading the story around, getting
Yeah,
all that stuff in there. Yeah, so I mean, it's not a great look, and he called out Bruce Arians too on social media, which think that's like the third time in the last
yeah.
month.
That's rough. JTK DC is defensive coordinator. That's what I was talking about with the Niners. All right. Yeah, the whole AB thing is a debacle. We also got news on Gronk, just saying that if forced to decide, he'd choose retirement. Uh, that just I mean, like, especially because we got these Tom Brady quotes yesterday. Him just saying like, we don't know how long life is going to be. He referenced Kobe in this speech, just saying that like Kobe retired and then passed away like 2 years out. By the way, we're coming up on the anniversary of the Kobe
It's today.
passing.
It's today.
It's today. My goodness,
Yep.
that's crazy. Damn, that made me a little sad. That's okay though. But he just talks about that and everything, and it's like this sounds like someone who's leaning towards retirement.
I would think so. Yeah. I mean, it's more like what does he have left to accomplish? I think the
Yep.
only thing that he wants is just that he's just so obsessed with the game that he doesn't know if he wants to step away or not. But I think he's realizing that he does. Um, he wants the time. Like he left his home and then wanted to see where he could go and win next, and he did it. And what else does he have to prove? So like for me, I mean, Gronk could care less. Like he'll go out, he'll play football, and he'll be fine. But he's not going to play for another quarterback. And he already was retired for a few seasons, and he loved retirement. So
Yep.
I don't know. I think those. I think we'll maybe Brady comes back one more time. It seems like I think I don't know. I'm going back on the Rodgers thing, but Brady is a little bit easier to read in this scenario. I think that he does have he'll give like the one more year kind of thing. Like he's not just going to go out and leave.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like everything in that speech yesterday just
Oh,
led me
I
to
know.
believe.
I think so. The whole thing, like I said before, when we were talking about the what's man in the arena or whatever.
Uh huh.
I think is that what it's called. Anyway, they didn't post the last episode because it's rumored that he's retiring in the last line of the documentary, but they didn't win. So I don't know when their
Yeah.
release date's supposed to be. So who knows? Maybe he is. Maybe I'm wrong. But I mean, that you could see just based on Sunday alone, you could see from Saturday to Sunday. I think that, in my opinion, that the tide officially shifted from the NFC AFC quarterbacks.
Yeah, you could definitely say that. Man, I saw this interesting graphic. I know yesterday we were talking about just kind of the QB battle in the AFC, and I kind of want to carry it over to today because I saw this perfect graphic just talking about everyone here. I was telling you like I've seen comparisons to Brady and Manning with Mahomes and Allen. I've also seen it with Burrow and Herbert as well. But then then I got a graphic that said Mahomes is Brady, just basically winning all the time. Allen is Payton, stat stuffer, gets a few but not a lot. Joe Burrow is Ben Roethlisberger, basically just wins the AFC whenever the other two aren't competing in the AFC Championship. And Justin Herbert is that random Philip Rivers Chargers quarterback that always is down bad. And I was like, yeah, that sounds
Oh,
about
that's
right.
sad.
Yeah, it's sad, but it sounds about right.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see
Yeah.
that. I think it's even more. I think we've never seen it this packed before, though. At least in the
Yeah.
last 15 years.
Yeah, because you still have Lamar to throw in that conversation. Um, and that really changes things there. So
Yeah,
like
and
it's a lot of good
I
guys.
still think you need to put Tua in there a little bit, and you
You
have
and your
Watson too.
you and your Tua love, man. I don't have it, but I know you do, so that's okay. Um, all right, let's continue our talks about all these hirings that happened because the Bears hired the chief director of player personnel, Ryan Poles. This is who I was thinking about. I thought Ryan Poles got hired to the Viking job. I guess not. But since the Bears hired him, Ryan Poles really good friends with Brian Flores. So potential that Brian Flores could come into this Bears coaching job It seems, I'm not going to say more than likely, but like, it seems like there's a 50-50 shot here.
Yep. Brian Flores is a guy that's been a pretty popular candidate everywhere, so I'm not surprised. But it does fit in this scenario here, especially with his mantra and just the system that the Bears would normally physically type to run there. So they also are hiring, or they have interviewed Eberflus and Dan Quinn for that head coaching job as well. I would expect that position to be filled in the next 2 to 3 days.
Yeah. The Dan Quinn hiring would be interesting too. I'd be intrigued by the Dan Quinn
Yep.
hiring as well.
So would I.
All right, let's keep going. Well, here you go. You talked about this. Matt Eberflus and Dan Quinn expected to interview with Bears GM for head coaching job. So, like you said, we're expecting this head coaching job to be done sooner rather than later, and we should get some update on what the Chicago Bears are going to do. It makes everything interesting, right? Because we got to know what type of system Fields is going to be. At least that's the mindset that I'm in. Because what system he's going to be is kind of going to decide his value next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, Montgomery is still one of the top, I think, in my opinion, top 10 running backs in the league, given system, given who's at quarterback. So I guess it just depends on that. I think we expect to see Allen Robinson on the move here shortly as well. So the things are going to open up a little bit for the Bears on both sides of the ball.
Yep, for sure. We also got the news that the Giants hired Joe Schoen as the new general manager. They had the second meeting with Brian DeBall for the head coaching position. So, if you guys couldn't tell, there's a lot of head coaching spots open this year, and they all got to get filled. So, and the whole Sean Payton thing just made another open spot.
Yep.
Things are going to be very interesting here to see who gets signed to this Giants head coaching job because unlike these other teams, they inherit a mess of a team.
Yeah, they do. Them and Jacksonville both. Not, yeah, I think that, the AFC or the NFC North coaching jobs are definitely a couple of the better openings to get to. We'll see, though. As far as, so for me, like, when I say like most of the coaching stuff is kind of getting filled, it really is. And I think we're going to see, maybe not today, but over the next couple days here, I think almost the majority of the really, really good options are going to be gone in the next 24 to 48 hours. And then you have Jacksonville, who they've interviewed a couple people, but they have no idea what they have not settled on anything for the future. And honestly, it's the worst landing spot for anybody. So it's basically like drawing straws. And if you get the short straw, you're going to Jacksonville.
Yeah, and that short straw we saw last night, it could have potentially been Byron Leftwich, and then they come out this
Yeah.
morning and say we're not close, essentially, and we're really going
Yep.
to take our time with this. I mean, it's really
More
interesting. This
time you
whole
take, like they fired their coach midway through the year. They've
yeah.
had plenty of time. They've had a head start on everybody, and they can't make decisions. That just screams bad organization to me.
Well, I mean, we already knew, right? This Jags team, this Jags organization has always been one that's always been a little questionable. So, Jags haven't decided on a decision yet, and like you say in your notes, they fall a little bit behind in the head coaching job. I thought so. This kind of shocked me. I saw this and I was like, wait, didn't Byron Leftwich get hired last night? No, I guess they went back on that because
They did.
I saw a lot of news organizations like. News organizations. I saw Sleeper end up putting out a report saying that Byron Leftwich was hired, and I was like, "That's a terrible head coaching job. I don't know why you would do that to yourself." And I guess they walked it back. So it's going to be interesting to
Yeah.
see who gets
Well,
hired for this spot.
former team stuff, right? Like I think that's a decent fit in terms of optics. But
I guess.
I don't know if you're Byron Leftwich. Like maybe that's the writing on the wall for Brady, right? Like maybe that's the guy that
Yeah.
tips the scales a little bit. Who knows?
Maybe you're 100% right. Um, Finally, on to some player news. We got the news this morning that Brandon Brooks decided to. Oh no, he did not restructure his contract. He retired. This is what you were talking about to me before the show. I guess
Yep.
some news came out yesterday or earlier this morning that he could potentially be restructuring his contract since the Eagles are a little bit over the salary cap, and instead he decides to retire today. So this is a big piece to lose. Brandon Brooks is one of the, I'm not going to say the best guards, but one of the most reliable guards in the NFL.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird thing because, like you said, I was working on the agenda for this show last night and this morning, and he's reportedly structuring his contract to because they have two first round picks or several picks in the first couple rounds, and
First.
like they want to run this thing back and get them into a better spot. And he just retires. So I know it's a guy that's been dealing with some injuries too, and he's
Hmm.
live on Eagles press right now, so maybe we'll find out why the reasoning is there. But he's had a long career, had a very good career as well. It's kind of weird that he decided to do this after those reports came out.
Yeah, definitely interesting. Man, JTK asked, "Do we think that Jimmy G is underrated?" You don't want to hear us get into a Jimmy G conversation. That would last way too long. I will say, I saw the graphic yesterday. First 50 games with the Niners, Jared, 35 and 15. That's including the
Yep.
postseason. That puts him at a
Yep.
70% win rate. I'll take that every day of the week, baby.
Well, you have to, right? That's why I don't understand. I don't know. I mean, Trey Lance is tough for the future, but you can't let him like. This is probably best case scenario. No matter like, I know like I'm gonna be sad for you if you do lose the Super Bowl, or if you do lose or like if you lose at all. I'm gonna be
Uh huh.
sad for you, but you guys have never had a brighter future
Oh yeah.
in terms of just organizational flip because you have Jimmy G, who just last year or even 2 years ago, where he didn't finish seasons or whatever that was. Like I don't know, but I can't even count anymore how many games he's missed due to injury. But
It's a lot.
he had zero trade value in the last
Yeah.
2 seasons, and now it's the best it's ever going to be. So whatever happens, you are going to have an absolute bag for him.
Yeah, him or I mean Trey Lance. If we decide to keep Jimmy on the team, then we're going to trade away Trey, and I feel pretty confident that one of these guys are leaving because I think it's kind of pointless to have them both on the team. And you're
Yeah.
going to get the bag for Trey Lance too. I mean, he hasn't proven himself a ton, but in the Texans game, he looked good. I would say in the Cardinals game, that was the best showcase of his talents. Really almost put the team on his back in his first start ever as a rookie to win against a dominant NFC West team. So it's gonna
I,
be this is gonna be one of the best off seasons I think we've seen in a while for this Niners team. And I think people are starting to like the Niners too. So I wouldn't be surprised if they attracted some free agents.
well, yeah, it's going to be a great destination there. The one downside, I guess, is that the NFC West, the actual division itself, is going to be tough over the next decade. So I think the only team that slips in that regard is Seattle. But if they keep Russ, then they're still in it too.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. All right, we've talked plenty about NFL. Anything else here for the NFL? And if not, we can talk about last night's NBA slate.
I think we're okay on the news right now, but I would expect a lot of coaching positions to be filled in the next couple days.
Yep, should be interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun to talk about on Friday. We're not going to have the show tomorrow, or at least the news show tomorrow. Might be a gaming show tomorrow instead, but we'll keep you guys updated on that. Let's talk about this NBA recap, though. Clippers stun the Wizards. Wizards are in shambles right now after the Clippers come back and win after being down 35 points. That's a lot of points to come back from, Jared. And we already talked about how this Wizards team has a terrible upcoming schedule. I said temperature gauge for the Wizards was at like a 3 or a 2. You can bring it down to like a 1 or a half, I
Uh,
guess, because
yeah,
it's looking bad for this team.
yeah, not good. We talked about how this stretch was going to be scary for the Wizards, and I did not expect that to happen last night. This would have been one of the only teams that they were able to beat in that stretch. Terrence Mann with a big game, Amir Coffey with a very big game as well. And look at that, Luke Kennard actually showing up and playing a
Wow,
decent game as well.
almost worth
So,
16 mil a year.
yep, the Clippers scored 80 points in the second half, Josh.
That's a lot of points. That's a lot of points. Yeah, I
Yep.
mean, like as a Wizards, if you are a Wizards fan, you're looking at this team and you're thinking, "What in the world is going on?" Because like you were in
Yeah,
such a good spot to start out the year, and this team looked really promising, and everything has fallen apart.
yep. The Clippers scored 36 points in the first half,
My
and they
goodness.
scored 80 in the second half.
That's ridiculous. That's silly that you can't close out a game like that. When you're up 35 points, you should be able to close out that game. fact that you're not able to is disappointing to say the least. Anthony Davis returns. Lakers get a win over the Brooklyn Nets, a big win. Again, this Nets team is in full health, so it's not a real win against the Brooklyn Nets, but it's still a good win nonetheless.
Yeah, solid win for the Lakers. I mean, you're in a spot where, again, we have to say this every single game. Your team's on the hot seat. You're in the spotlight. So
No,
they are 500 right now. And yes, they beat a team that didn't have Irving or Durant, but you take that because who knows? Every single loss that Brooklyn endures now, especially with this James Harden stuff. I mean, not saying they're sellers because they're not, but if the for the Nets, it's like for me as an Eastern Conference team guy, I
oh, you
want
must.
everything to happen to the Nets because if they get a bad matchup or something, or one of their guys just isn't able to play, or Irving can't play a series on the road or something, that's a big W.
So we got James Harden in a press conference for the first time since he had those quotes, or not those quotes. He never said anything. We don't have any quotes, but since the rumors came out that he was frustrated and was willing to look somewhere else, and in the press conference, when asked about those frustrations, he said, "I'm frustrated because I want to win." And I mean, he couldn't have been more real than that. He was just 100%. But I mean, as if I was in the East, I'd be rejoicing at him saying that. Like, if he's that frustrated and that pissed off at the team to not even deny those claims of his frustration, that's spicy, man. That's really spicy.
They're number 3 in the East. What are you complaining about?
Yeah, seriously. Like I don't understand. Like it's not even like you're like underperforming. Like if you're underperforming like the Lakers, I kind of understand you coming out and saying something like that. But like you're not even underperforming. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with this NFL or not this NFL with this NBA news and with James Harden and everything. Because I don't think they trade him at the trade deadline, but I think there's a good chance that he opts out and goes somewhere else this summer.
I think it's more likely after, right? I think BetOnline still has them as the favorites to win, which I think is absolute horseshit. I don't think that they can. I don't think they can do it. I really don't. And I know that Sean's on the opposite side of that. He even said last night on his NBA Top Shot talk that the Nets are facing the Warriors. And I'm like, how can you say that just given everything that's going on right now, and you only have Kyrie playing away games? Like, I don't know. You can tell just right look at the box score. They are 12-12 at home. They're 17-6 on the road. Obviously, they prefer playing on the road with Kyrie over the last couple of weeks. So
You know,
I think the writing's on the wall for the Nets. I don't think that they have the pieces they got last year. Maybe this changes at the trade deadline when if they can get some veteran players, but they got the veteran players in the offseason and they haven't shown up at all.
no. Yeah, you signed guys like Paul Millsap. Don't want to loop LaMarcus Aldridge into this conversation because
You're right. He's okay.
he's been okay, but I think back to Paul Millsap and how just I thought this might have been a good idea, but no, it's been an incredibly bad idea indeed. And Patty Mills has been here and there. He's been very iffy, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens when KD comes back for this team and whether or not we ever see Kyrie be a full-time player again because I think that's a big part of it too, like we've seen in many reports. Let's talk about Embiid as he went absolutely crazy against this Pelicans team. It was only a matter of time as Willie Hernan-Gomez tried to guard him. And yeah, he was able to kind of bully this team and lead the 76ers to a win.
Yep. Strong night for Embiid. Strong night for Tobias Harris. And that's pretty much it for the Sixers side. Uh, they played a lot of guys 30 minutes, but I mean, I don't know. It's the Pelicans, but I would expect, honestly, I would have expected the Sixers to be a bit better. So
No,
that's my take on that. But yeah, Embiid, very strong night. Um, Game wasn't really in jeopardy. I guess you could say it was close enough for them to get extended run, but
yeah,
good for DFS. As far as just overall play, like I don't know, Pelicans are the Pelicans, and without this is kind of like one of those tryout teams where I think that somebody could get a piece for the playoffs for a contender.
yeah, that's a good point. You could definitely see some of these pieces traded potentially to help out another team get their playoff championship hopes. Let's talk about the injuries we have going on. THJ left with a fractured left foot, and we found out that the Bulls' Derek Jones has a fractured finger, and he's out for 6 to 8 weeks. We know we're dealing with injury news from Sabonis. We know we're dealing with a lot of injury news on that just Pacers team in general. injuries kind of running rampant at this point in the season.
Yeah, they are. And it's happening to contenders, and you got to kind of loop Dallas in there because they are in the
Mhm.
top five in the West. So, yeah, I mean, it's obviously the Bulls are going through things right now, and Derek Jones could, he's a guy that could start. He's a guy that's a sixth man. Um, with him and Caruso and Ball dealing with things, and Levine's here like back and forth, and Vooch is back and forth. It's we'll see. This team needs the All Star break pretty badly.
Yeah, they certainly do need that All Star break. Um, let's talk about some players that can leave for contenders right now, because I think it is important to keep track of this as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline. Eight players that can leave for contenders right now: Robert Covington, Goran Dragic, Eric Gordon, Montrezl Harrell, Justin Holiday, Robin Lopez, Kenrich Williams, and Thad Young as well. So all these guys would be beneficial in some regard to almost every team, every championship team. And I feel like you're going to see one at the very least of these guys go to the 76ers to shore up that bench.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you're always looking for that very strong defensive wing as well as a shooter from the wing. So guys like Danny Green and Avery Bradley used to be guys that were sought out in this scenario. Rocco is that kind of guy as well. And I mean, Kenrich Williams can definitely hold his own. Thad Young is a very um, he had been frustrated earlier in the season because San Antonio's in this rebuild mode sort of thing, and Pop's obviously going to play the younger players to get them going, and he just doesn't see much time on the court at all. So you could see him step in to a contender. I think the Bulls would really want him back right now after they traded away for him. So I mean, they kind of need Thad Young back in that Bulls roster right now, actually. So we'll see. The Bucks are in some of these talks as well for some of these guys. So, well, like they did with the Bucks, have been a team that normally doesn't make too many moves late in the year, but they've done it the past couple. They got Pau Gasol a couple years ago. They got PJ Tucker last year, which arguably helped us win the title or one of the last pushes to get there. And I think that's some of these guys like Rocco, like there's no reason for him to be on the Blazers anymore. And Dragic hasn't played for the Raptors the entire season. Is that more like I remind me of why that was? He just doesn't like it there, or like they don't come to an agreement on things.
I think there's some. I think that like Nick Nurse isn't gonna play him because at the end of the day, like he likes these short rotations that he's keeping, and
Uh,
um, I just think he's not playing. So like he stepped away from the team. I mean, can you blame? Like he's made like Goran Dragic has done his thing. Like I don't know. It's a really interesting case. I don't think there's an exact reason why out there, but all we know is that something's happening for sure.
okay, interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, he could easily come to a contender as well if they need a
Yep.
guard or a back. A back. He's kind of more in this backup guard role now.
Yeah. For sure. It should be interesting to see um what goes on with him, because he is a talented player and could play some really important minutes for a contender team. All right. Anything else, or we have to go over the divisional review because we talked about how we were going to do this yesterday. Going to go over some division futures for the NBA, and I am going to get things pulled up on my side of things.
Yep, we're gonna go over divisions. This is a section of betting that nobody really talks about too much just because we're so focused on conferences all the time. Um, so I guess if you don't know, now you know there actually are divisions in basketball.
Crazy.
Um, yeah, right. Normally, these are pretty, like clear front runner conversations, and it is a little bit again this year, but there are some spots where you can make cases for other teams. So let's start with the East. Let's start with the Atlantic Division, which basically hosts all the East Coast, the Northeast Coast teams, and Toronto. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a front runner situation, but between the Nets and the Sixers, it's pretty. Those two teams are up there. Sixers plus 170, the Nets minus 180. Uh, if you're looking at recency, the Sixers are the team that's been hotter, and I mean, I don't think that they have enough to get there. And these are regular season titles. They're not. who gets farther in the playoffs or whatnot. So give me the Nets here. That's a pretty easy one unless they completely collapse, which is possible, but I don't know. I don't think the Sixers have enough there. If you've noticed, it's basically like if one of Joel or Tobias has a bad game, they lose that game. So I don't
Yeah,
think that they can get there.
I would be curious. I don't know, man. Plus 170 is a lot at the end of the day. And you consider that you're getting plus 170 while the 76ers team is down one game right now to them in the conference or in the divisional standings. Excuse me. Um, I just feel like it's not a terrible bet to have. So I'll take the
It's a
plus money
decent.
sign. It's juiced on the net side, and I understand why. Like once you get KD and Kyrie to be full time players, it's going to be a very dangerous team. It's going to be hard to beat. But I still think that the 76ers can get a little bit of a leg up here in the coming days, weeks, months while KD is out.
Can we flip this on the other side of the conversation and say this is the lowest you're going to get Brooklyn at?
Yeah, this is the lowest you're going to get Brooklyn at most likely because either you're definitely this minus 180 is definitely the lowest that you're going to get them at.
Yeah. So if you're a Nets believer and you want to get a decent price on it, you're still paying 2-1 basically. So it's not the greatest financial investment, but it's a pretty solid bet.
Yep, for sure. All right, let's talk about the Central Division, or no, not the the Central Division. Bucks, Bulls, Cavs, the main teams that are vying for this number one spot. I know you're a little bit biased towards your Bucks, but all of these three teams are separated by 1.5 games.
Yep.
That is how close the
Yep.
margin is here, and I don't know, man. I really like this Cavs team, so maybe I think I see plus 400 and I get enticed, especially as the Bulls deal with a ton of injuries.
Well, sure. I mean, I like as much as I call the Bulls frauds, I'm not seeing it until now with injuries, so it's not really a victory lap take.
Yeah.
But you're getting them at plus 210 as well. So I don't think you can go wrong with any of these three teams. And I wouldn't be surprised to see any of the. Well, I would be surprised a little bit to see Cleveland above both of them, but I think between the Bucks and Bulls, it's kind of just a toss up at the moment. So if you have a strong lean, take it because these are. I mean, it's like you said, within one game of each other. It's really going to come down to who stays healthy and who also is going to get those trade pieces or free agency like trade deadline pieces because I think the Bulls are probably the more attractive market, even with Milwaukee being the champion.
Yeah, I would tend to agree that they probably are the more attractive market. All right, let's talk about these other divisions. They're all juiced. Like I mean, like you can place a bet here if you really want, but you have the Jazz is minus 3,300 because they are currently 30-18, and the next closest team is the Nuggets, right? Yeah, the Nuggets, who are currently 4 games behind them. You have the Suns leading the Pacific Division. I think minus 325 is the lowest you could get this team right now. I know the Warriors won last night, but I still think they have some tough times ahead as long as Dre isn't in the conversation. So I think the Suns run away with that division. And then the Heat are minus 1,000 too. So I don't know. All these odds are pretty freaking juiced right now.
Yeah, the one case you can make, which is still very like it's not likely, and I like the Grizzlies, is the Mavericks. Like I'm not betting the Grizzlies minus 400. There's no reason to do that. Mavericks plus 210 is enticing,
Yeah.
even though like that's been one of the weirder teams. If you look at the playoff pictures on both sides, to see, I think both five seeds, Mavs and Cavs, is kind of weird that you're seeing them in the spots that you're seeing them in.
Yeah, I would agree, especially Mavs. Like I never know what to do with this team. But the fact that they have changed around things with Kidd as the head coach, like gone extremely slow paced, picked up defense a ton. Like it's a completely different team than what we were used to last year.
Yeah, who knew Jason Kidd could coach defense?
Amazing, just absolutely phenomenal. All right. Anything else on the NBA front? If not, we have some college hoops to talk about.
Nope. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's talk some college hoops. Let's talk about how Auburn came to a very close to lose, or came very close to losing their number one seed against Missouri. They were away 55-54. Close game, but luckily due to Kessler ending up having a double double, they end up pulling off the win.
Yeah, very. I mean, this is your first game as the number one seed in history of your program, and you almost lost. You almost blew
You
it
almost
late.
lost to an
Uh,
unranked team. Not even almost
yep,
lost. You almost lost to an unranked team too. Like
that's
that's
yep,
awful.
and below average squad too for Missouri this year.
Oh yeah.
They're not the Michael Porter's squads anymore.
No, they are certainly not. This game was close all the way through as well, which is kind of interesting. They were tied 31-31 after the first half, and it was really close in the second too. So happy that Auburn was going to get the win, but I don't see them holding that number one seed for very long. Um,
No,
we continue to see Duke struggle with ACC play. Almost lost last night to Clemson. Kind of the same situation where both of these teams were tied after the first half. Coming into the second half, things were very close. Paulo Banchero, the 19.7 rebounds, 4 assists. He gets to put on a little bit of a show, and they end up getting a win against Clemson, which is it's big for their confidence because I will say ACC play has gone terribly when it should have been going great.
right, and that's big too because ACC play this year in general is down
hmm
tremendously
This is the
compared to
worst
the
year
other
that we've ever
conferences.
seen in the ACC in the past
Yeah,
15 plus. So,
yeah,
like,
you're not going to see very many teams in the tournament this year.
no, ACC is pretty down bad this year. But Duke has still struggled, which kind of blows my mind, considering the fact that you had solid wins, you played competitively against really solid squads early on in the season, and you're just not able to carry it out. I don't know. Maybe it's the crowds in the ACC play, but they were at home in this game. Like there's no reason. I'm curious what the odds were on this game because there was probably no reason that this should have been close, and I'm sure Vegas was saying and Bet Online were saying that they were going to blow them out.
Yeah, I'm looking up Duke against the spread right now, so we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. While you are looking that up, let's talk about the late night hammer that we talked about last night or yesterday on the morning after show. UCLA and Arizona faced off. UCLA had a big day at home, getting the upset and pretty convincingly getting this upset, 75-59 against Arizona. They were ahead all the way throughout. They controlled from the first minute to the last minute, basically.
Yeah, they did. It was not even close, and I was going to put some juice on UCLA. I did not.
Rip.
Instead, we bet our NBA bet that lost. So
Oh, good times. Good times. Um, Last game that we'll talk about today. Illinois getting a big win against Michigan. 24 seed over the 10 seed. And getting that win at home is big. They had Trent Frazier come through for them with 16 points and 3 rebounds. So good win for them. Sad that we can't see this Michigan State team step up.
right. I mean, this is a big win for shaking up of the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
Big Ten and Big 12 conferences this year are stacked
Yeah.
in terms of basketball talent, and it's going to be, and you get to count, like, you can't count out Purdue, Wisconsin, Iowa's in the mix. Like those, there's some really tough basketball programs this year. So all of these Ten conference games mean so much, and it's the difference between an 8 seed and, I don't know, a 4 or 3 seed
Yep.
if a couple of games swing the wrong direction for you. And we've seen the past couple of years that when it gets to tournament time, rankings don't really matter for the Big Ten, as
No.
far as rankings, like for the individual conference play. So whoever wins the tournament usually goes on to have a very successful March Madness run.
Yeah, they typically do, and we've seen that for the past few years. So excuse me, should be interesting to see how the Big Ten shakes out because you're right. There's a lot of players in this conference this year that could make some noise once we get to March Madness. All right, anything else in the college basketball world, Jared? And if not, we get to our blind dogs.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up on the Duke thing. They're 10-7-2 against the spread this year, so 58% of the time, right around league average.
No, okay, sounds good. All right, let's talk about blind dogs. You have me down for a win. You got me excited until I just remember I totally lost last night, sadly.
What? Didn't you pick
Yeah,
the Hurricanes?
I picked the Hurricanes -1.5 because
Oh
that
no.
was the plus money play, and I was talking with some buddies last night. It was like 10 p.m. And they're big hockey guys, like they're huge hockey guys, and so I was saying, man, good win by the Hurricanes, but fuck them for not covering -1.5. And I had to explain to them what -1.5 meant because they're not necessarily sports bettors. And they were like, "Oh, dude, they had that in the bag. They just gave up like 2 late goals." And I was like,
Yep.
"Oh, dang it, man! It would have been such a juicy bet." But my home team doesn't come through for me, and your team didn't come through for you either.
Oh, shutout 2 days in a row. It's been great.
Rough time for the NHL Blind Dogs. But we're still back at it, and we're still here to do it today. Jared, give me your NHL Blind Dog.
We should just turn this into a TikTok series because it's been hilarious to say the least.
We can be the NHL Trent essentially.
Oh, I would love it. I don't even watch the games either. I just
I
go
just
and
yeah
look. I look for 5 seconds and then my day goes on.
yeah
So
exactly.
let's see. Yeah, I have not been good with anything the last like week and a half, which has been very solid.
It's been
So
rough, man. It's been rough.
I'm not going to bet against Colorado. It's something I know that I don't want to do. But nothing really looks that great today. So I will take the Columbus Blue Jackets against Calgary. I know it's a bad decision, but here we are at home, plus 165.
Ooh, it's going to be spicy. We'll have to see what happens. Man, it is Boston though, right? Like the Bruins. Bruins are solid this year. I think they're coming off of a back to back though. Maybe that should be something that I'm considering. Um,
They're all right, but the Avalanche are number one in the league.
yes, I seem to remember that. We're gonna take the We're going to take the San Jose Sharks +190 against the Washington Capitals in Washington. We'll see how that goes. But those are our NHL blind dogs for the day. I mean, it is what it is. I think let's pull up records because you're 4-10. I'm 5-8 right now, or 5-9 here.
5 and 9. Yep.
Rough days at the office for us with NHL blind dogs. But hey, we're an NHL stream. We're gonna keep doing it because that was our New Year's resolution. We're not gonna be like those people who go to the gym for 2 weeks and then are done with it after that. We're gonna keep up with the resolution as long as we can. We need to get like Hockey Mike on here to like analyze our NHL blind dogs and him just to tell us how dog shit we are.
We just need him to like stitch us on TikTok with his reactions of our picks.
Yeah, seriously, that'd be great. All right, Jared, let's get out of here. Any final thoughts for you?
Uh, Final thoughts. I mean, another kind of slow day, but keep an eye on the NFL coaching changes. I don't know. I mean, Aaron Rodgers news, we didn't talk about it the other day, but basically he's not making a decision until the franchise tag announcement comes out for Devontae Adams, which is around the second week of March. So apparently he's supposed to break the news with James Jones in person at the Pat McAfee show studio. So that'll be a fun day.
Interesting. Yeah, gonna be fun. I heard a little birdie telling me that him and Adams want a reunion in Denver.
You
That certainly
a
would be
reunion?
interesting,
Neither
man.
neither of them have ever played there.
Yeah, I don't know why it was said as a reunion, but those were the exact words that I saw on from some reporter from the
I
NFL.
don't
So
want Rodgers to the Broncos ever.
yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be interesting. Uh, anyway, it's going to be an interesting day with NFL coaching changes. Make sure to keep an eye out for that. I know Jared and Sean are going to be on the NBA show, so that's going to be a good one today. And yeah, I'm off after this. There's potential for a gaming stream tomorrow, but make sure to stay updated on that. Either we do the gaming stream, or I don't think you're going to stream if we don't game, right?
That is right.
All right, so we're gonna get to a decision on that. We'll let you guys know if there is gonna be a gaming stream tomorrow. And yeah, hope you all have a good day. As always, and also shout out to our sponsors, BetOnline.ag. You can go up a little bit in the chat, see the Nightbot. They have that link posted there. You can use that link, deposit $50, get a little bit sprinkle on top of that, and then you can bet on some of our Probably not our blind dog, but probably other bets that we provide as the company. There's plenty of good bets out there, and yeah, should be a good time. All right, that is it for the show. My name is Joshua Reimer. Good morning and good skill.